Hey, Shalom, Akim Shalom. First and foremost, as always, I would like to give all praise, all honor, and all glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachakodash. I would like to give double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone that taught us this truth, and that's for teaching this truth, and much peace, love, and salutation to the elect, beginning with 144,000, all the way down to the large multitude that believes, and who the Lord will deliver these last days. To you all I say Shalom. I'm the brother Tazamah from the Great Millstone Dallas camp, coming back today with another lesson, and I pray this lesson will be edifying to the elect. Today's lesson that I want to get into very briefly is how, as you see here, this is from Dabu77, and he did a video, and the title of the video says, Trump declares public emergency and puts DC under federal control, deploys National Guard to streets. All right, now, this all comes off of the back of, a so-called recent attack and a series of quote-unquote, and I'm saying quote-unquote for a reason, a quote-unquote attacks that have been happening in various different cities. Like, for example, you had this individual that got jumped in D.C. by the name of a Doge worker, a Doge employee known as AKA Big Balls, and they never showed the images of the individuals who supposedly jumped the guy. You have an individual who ran into the CDC, are not necessarily inside the CDC, but I guess it was across the street from the CDC. An individual opened fired, and they don't have any images of this guy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, another individual in Atlanta, at a base in Atlanta, Fort Wayne, I think it was, and by the name of Cornelius, interesting, that supposedly opened fire and wounded some individuals at Fort Wayne in Atlanta. So, with this all being said, they're trying to use the guise of, peace and safety, as the scripture says, as the scripture says that that would use peace and safety, but sudden destruction is going to come upon them. As a matter of fact, the scripture also says this in the book of Daniel. All right, through his policy, he shall call his craft to prosper. Now we know that's talking about Antiochus Epiphanes, going back to the Greek Empire. But okay, you can use the same concept today. All right, because you do have pretty much the Greeks ruling all over again. All right, and they're using Greco-Roman policies to enact the same things here in Babylon the Great, also known as America. Okay, but I just want to qualify and state that this particular verse here in Daniel 8 is talking about Antiochus Epiphanes. But once again, just qualifying that you can use this as well with the same policy, the same policies that are being used today. All right, this is Daniel chapter 8, verse 23. It says, and in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. And this king of a fierce countenance is talking about Antiochus Epiphanes, going back to the Greek Empire. All right, this is one of the lines, one of the wicked roots, all right, that will come out of the Seleucid dynasty. All right, which the Seleucid dynasty, all right, was one of the four. Seleucid was one of the four generals that ruled after Alexander the Greek's death. He had Seleucid, Ptolemy, Cassander, and Lysimachus. All right, it says, and his power shall be mighty, but not by his own, but not by his own power, and he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper, and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. All right, and you can read this history in 1st and 2nd Maccabees. All right, where pretty much holy hell got placed on Jake, to the point whereas it was a crime, all right, for us to even call ourselves Jews. We couldn't circumcise our sons. They was burning the books of the law. They was forcing us to sacrifice pork upon the altar. Our men was being forced, our young men was being forced to wear hats, and they built a gymnasium in Jerusalem. All kinds of mischief and wickedness was going on at this time, and this is you so-called white people's history. And you've been doing this for a millennium throughout all various different empires of the world. That's why you got to be taken down. Here's a point, verse 25. It says, and through his policy, all right, policy, keep that word in mind, and through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand. All right, now let's get policy and craft. All right, this word policy is in the Hebrew is shakal. All right, that word is shakal. And it says here, it says prudence, insight. Now remember, this prudence and this insight that this devil has, he's following after agenda. He's following after an agenda that's already written up. All right, it's already an agenda and a plan that's set in place for these devils to follow, and they have particular timelines and guidelines of what they're to do. And Donald J. Trump is doing nothing more than just following the plans of the global elite. All right, so it says prudence and insight, and he has an insight of what's really going on. All right, it says bad sense, cunning, craft. You're seeing it's in a bad sense. So he's using it in the guise of, we want to make our city, we want to make our streets safe again. And, we want to make sure that our city, our DC being the capital, we want to make sure that it's cleaner and make people feel more safe and protected. But here it is, you're going to have, military men with, military grade weaponry, vehicles and things of that nature riding up and down these streets, and the main people that he's aiming at, all right, in this in this law that he's invoking, is going to be aimed at Jake, specifically the Southern Kingdom. So we told y'all that here it is, the Northern Kingdom got it first, all right, by getting deported, but the Southern Kingdom gonna get it the worst. And we already see, as soon as Donald J. Trump came into office his second term, who did he start going after? He started going after the tribes, man. He started going after Israelites, man. You so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, man. Okay? And we've been telling y'all that he's gonna do this, man. So all you buck dancing ass niggas that over here voting for Donald Trump and thinking that America gonna be made great again and trusting in Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, all you niggas deserve to do is just eat a missile and be destroyed, man. You see? Because at the end of the day, you're trusting in a system that's built upon oppression. You're trusting in a system that's built to further keep you in oppression, man. Okay? And that root word is shakal, says to be prudent. All right, to be prudent, to be circumspect, wisely understand and prosper. Okay, to be prudent, be circumspect, to look at or upon, have insight. Insight and insight is a sight within. Okay, so going back to the verse, it says, and through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. That's also the point that I wanted to grab, is by peace. He's going to destroy many. The scripture says that though his words be smoother than oil, yet were they drawn swords. It says that in Psalm 55. He also shall stand up against the prince of princes. All right, and that's ultimately what Esau is going to do. Donald J. Trump was the one that set up the Space Force. And with that Space Force that they're setting up, they ultimately know that a threat from outside of this dimension is coming, which that threat is Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua and the holy angels. All right, now they're talking about this alien, this so-called probe that's coming towards Earth, moving, at 320,000 miles an hour, I think it is, and they don't know what it is, and it's projected to hit Earth, and that's the new thing now. It says, but he shall be broken without hand. And that's exactly what the Lord gonna do to his ass, man. Now, Antiochus Epiphanes was broken without hand, because he did try to magnify himself, to be, a so-called God on earth. Epiphanes means God manifest. You see, but Esau's trying to do the same thing with his technology, through his AI Godhead, through his technocracy, but he's gonna be broken without pieces. Or he's going to be broken without hand. Whenever Yahushua returns, he's going to be completely and utterly annihilate this devil. All right, but I'm going to play this clip from Dabu 77. This is fair use, by the way. I'm not using this, this clip for any kind of monetary gain or anything of that nature. This is all, free information or free news, I rather say, that's freely given. All right, turn it down at about 10 so it don't echo. All right, here we go.
And we're here for a very serious purpose, Something's out of control.
Actually, Salak, I think I have it sped up. My bad. Let me slow it down.
And we're here for a very serious purpose, Something's out of control, but we're going to put it in control very quickly like we did on the southern border. I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States. I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. Very good people, but they're tough, and they know what's happening. They've done it before. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly.
They're going to be allowed to do their job properly. You see, now, granted, this is fresh off the presses. You know what I'm saying? This was invoked yesterday, so we're going to wait and see. But this could very well be a ploy to, be invoking more draconian measures in these streets, man. Here it is down here in Texas. They pretty much set a curfew to whereas you can't go to particular places past a certain time down here in Dallas. You can't go to deep, those that are down here know, but, some bros that's visited know about it, but you can't go to Deep Ellum past 10. They close it down, and you got to go home because of, the crime that's been happening out there. People getting shot up, people getting mugged, the crime has increased exponentially. I remember you could go out to Deep Ellum, and, have a good time and go to a few places and things of that nature and be cool. But now it's gotten so bad that, you gotta leave up out of there no later than 10, which is pretty much to a degree like a curfew, but this whole issue of the police being federalized, in Washington, D.C., that this could invoke curfews. This lines right up, okay, with and I got an article I'm gonna read too, but this lines right up with Second Ezra's. All right, the 15th chapter, starting at around verse 14. All right, this is Second Ezra 15 and 14. It says, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein," and woe means destruction. All right, woe means grief. Woe means pain. Okay, so it says, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein." All right, it says, "For the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands." So it's going to be a complete Mad Max society out here. It's going to be complete anarchy out here. It says, "For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power." So it's going to be like a complete lawless society, which, these global elite, they want to bring forth lawlessness. They want to bring forth this lawless society. They want order out of chaos, and they're going to be the ones bringing forth the chaos and setting up these particular false Fs, these false FLAGSs, in these particular events that you see going on, ultimately to implement more order. Like I said when I started the video, this whole situation with so-called big balls. Come on now, like if you clearly can't see that this is Esau Edom and his tactics and his games, then you just clearly just are blind. If you can't see that this is Esau setting up order out of chaos, and also too, you have the whole Epstein list you know, that supposedly was supposed to come out, then it didn't come out, then they brought it back up, and now they're saying that Donald Trump is on the list, and you know, you have all this stuff going on, and you know, now the list ain't coming out again, but they got it all this confusion, you know. Then they you know, they throw out all different kinds of other enchantments out there, like Diddy was nothing more than just a major enchantment. You know, you have all these various different enchantments out there that are keeping the people confused, and that's exactly what they want. Verse 17, it says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. You see that? What's that? That's pretty much cities being shut off. That's pretty much checkpoints, you know, blockades. Okay, it says, for because of their pride the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. See, you're gonna have a lot of breaking and entering. You know, you're gonna have military men, you know, going into houses and rounding people up and carting them off to concentration camps. You know, and don't think that this whole, you know, the police being federalized out there in D.C., that this can't be invoked in other major cities. Because if this was such a big thing, like I heard the elder out in Vegas, Karatazov mentioned this. He was like, you know, if you got all this crime taking place in all these various major different cities, how come he wouldn't invoke it, you know, nationwide? How come it's only in D.C.? You know. But once again, you know, this could definitely be a prelude, you know, a precursor to something more sinister, for lack of better words. Okay. Verse 19, it says, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. Because, you know, you're not going to be able to when the cities get blocked off, you're not going to have food that's going to be able to enter in. That's what you call a famine. So famines can be, famines can happen by being man-made. You know, by stopping the movement of traffic. You know. So these various different things that are going on that Donald J. Trump mentioned, you know, when you watch the actual audio, he was talking about thugs, you know, mugging people, things of that nature. This thug here, this thug there, you know, gang violence, all this other kind of crazy stuff, right? You know, but you clearly can read between the signs and see, all right, that he's talking about you tribes, man. He ain't talking about Sally Mae and Billy Joe walking up and down the street. He's talking about you tribes, man. That's what he's aiming at. And this lines up with Revelation, the 12th chapter, where the scripture says that the devil shall come down having great wrath because he knows that he has but a short time. This is Revelation 12:12. It says, all right, it says, therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea. It says, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. You see, he knows he has a short time to rule. You know, he knows that his time is up. You know, and as we like to say, you know, we like to say that he's really on borrowed time. You know what I'm saying? He's really sitting on borrowed time right now. And with that borrowed time that he has, he understands and knows that it's only so much time that he has left, but he's not going to be able to. I'd rather say with that short amount of time, he's going to implement more draconian measures and more laws even more quicker, which is going to cause even more hell to be placed upon these people. But once again, it's mainly aimed at you tribes. It's mainly aimed at Jake. Okay? Let me see if there's anything else in this audio or if Dabu starts talking.
This is an unprecedented move, and it comes on the heels of their man Big Balls getting beat down in D.C.
See that?
They never seem to care about anyone else getting stabbed, shot, and killed, Seth Riches, anything else in the past. But all of a sudden now, they care. They care about going after druggies, right? Isn't that what a lot of the small-minded people out there?
Oh, yeah, and another thing, right? He invoked pretty much, they're getting ready to pass a law, if it hasn't already been passed, of a so-called, cleaning up, quote unquote homelessness on the streets. So as now these individuals that are homeless, are going to be gathered up and put into centers, quote unquote. But it's like, how come this hasn't been done before? Like, how come homeless, man, really honestly, homelessness could be fixed very, very quickly. Very, very quickly. You have all these, you have a lot of these abandoned buildings, you know what I'm saying? And, businesses and things of that nature that are going down that easily could be turned into shelters for quote unquote homelessness. But why now? Something to make you say, right?
Are thinking? You think that this is all about druggies? What about the people that have a 9-to-5 that work all week and live out of the vehicle or are homeless? What kind of camp are they going into? Huh? Do you ever stop to think about that and see the bigger picture? Of course. People that are on drugs need help. That's obvious. But that's where it stops with some of you. Your small mind can't seem to see the bigger picture of what they're doing. Just like you can't see with these strike teams going around rounding people up, that the moment they lock people back down again, they're gonna be used on purebloods.
You heard that? Because they also now are setting it up as law. They're setting it up as law. Matter of fact, let me see if I can find it real quick. Just give me 1 second. All right, I had to find it, but here it is right here. Y'all can read it. Federal court rules government can force blank blank based on beliefs, not facts. A federal appeals court just handed down one of the most troubling rules in modern medical freedom history. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that government officials can mandate blank blank, right? Can mandate it based on what they believe will help, not what you believe, but what they believe, regardless of whether those treatments actually work. So this is new. See? So think about this. Think about individuals who rejected the taco sauce. The Taco Bell fire sauce. Who think about individuals who was like, nah, I don't want no fire sauce on my taco. Now, moving forward, you could actually be penalized and possibly locked up if you don't want Taco Bell fire sauce on your taco. And obviously I'm speaking in code, but if you know, you know. And if you don't know, you better get with the program. Okay? If you don't want the Taco Bell fire sauce on your taco no more, now you're gonna be liable to get locked up. This is the world that we're living in now. Let's listen to some more.
You better see the bigger picture of what's happening here. The federalization of a city is no joke. Taking over the police force is no joke. Putting a National Guard on the streets against the people to do whatever they need to do, he said, it's no joke, and it happens. Now, D.C. is its own little neck of the woods with its own laws. It's just like London, just like the Vatican. I've explained this in separate videos, but this.
And that's the three unclean spirits that came out like frog. The three unclean spirits like frogs came out the mouth of the false prophet. Because you have, like he said, you have London, you have Washington, D.C., and you have the Vatican, which have their own set of laws and rules because they're pretty much their own country to a degree. You know what I mean? They don't have the same rules. Like D.C. doesn't have the same rules as Dallas. You know what I'm saying? It's completely different. D.C., out of D.C. comes the military and things of that nature. Then out of London comes the financial sector, and out of the Vatican comes the so-called religious sector. Right?
That's a precedent. Anyone that wants to show up saying, how can you be against them treating people for drugs? We never said that. Not once. You just made it up. We've never said that. You're just assuming that. Or you're clinging to garbage. Yeah, they need help. But you won't face the bigger question. What happens to all the other people out here that are homeless? How does it affect them? What kind of camp are they going in? That's the issue. Not people on drugs that need the help, not that. It's everyday people that are gonna get swept up off the streets, everywhere, with nowhere to go. They're gonna get rounded up And where are they going to go? Well, we'll see what these camps end up looking like. These treatment facilities, but again, how do you treat someone for being poor?
But you hear the main thing. You know what I'm saying? But hey, man, we're not gonna be out on these streets very much longer. And even with the Sequanium and the Occium out there in DC, we'll see what's gonna happen, because it may get to a point where they're not even able to even go out there and preach, which that would be big. We're gonna wait and see. It says Trump just federalized DC police and sent troops in. DC just federalized DC police and sent troops in New York, and sent troops in. New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles are next. Buckle up. See? So they getting ready to start federalizing all these different cities, man. New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Dallas. All these various major different cities out here, man. Philadelphia, Philly. Bro, it's bad out there in Philly, like Baltimore, the whole DMV area. What's that? DMV is Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia, I think, or Vermont or something like that. Somebody that's up in that area can qualify. But even when you read this, I'm not going to read the whole thing. Let's see. It says at the same time, 800 National Guard troops are deploying. You will see them flowing into the streets of Washington in the coming week. So here it is. You're gonna be in Washington D.C. Driving to work, going to the grocery store, going to get gas, whatever. Whatever. Just on your daily commute. Then you got military men and military vehicles just roaming the streets too. Which, hey, you're going to have once again, it's going to affect the tribes, man. You're going to have a lot of the tribes, so specifically Southern Kingdom, that's going to be getting rounded up. And who knows where the hell they're going to be, all these YN, and matter of fact, hey, that's really the anger of the Lord. So Psalm 17 says, deliver my soul from the wicked, which is thy sword. What's that scripture? Like a leopard in the city? Let me see if I can find it real fast. I think it's in yep, Jeremiah 5:6. It says, wherefore a lion out of the forest shall slay them. I might have to start up. Let me see. Yeah, let's start at verse 5. Jeremiah 5:5. I will give me unto the great men, and will speak unto them. And the great men are talking about the men of the Lord, are those of us that are speaking the truth. For they have known the way of Yahweh and the judgment of their power. But these have altogether broken the yoke and burst the bonds. But like it says here, but the leaders too, as one man, have thrown off the Most High's yoke and broken his chains. You see, because you also have so-called leaders out there that don't want to get down with the program, that don't want to bow down their neck to the will of the Lord. Wherefore a lion out of the forest shall slay them, and a wolf of the evening shall spoil them. A leopard shall watch over their cities. And it's not Esau also known as the leopard in Revelation 13? He has this beast that came out to sea that had the head of a leopard but the feet of a bear, which the feet of a bear represents how it's going to fall, but it says specifically the head of a leopard. Who also was represented as the leopard? The Greeks. A leopard shall watch over their cities, and a leopard is a very, very fast, fierce animal. And a leopard lurks, so like it scopes out the scene and it lurks on you. You see? It says, everyone that goeth out thence shall be torn in pieces. Let's read that again. Everyone that goeth out thence shall be torn in pieces, because their transgressions are many, and their backslidings are increased. You see that? That's martial law. Okay? It says, mainstream media spins the story. Crime is down, and this move is political. This is false. DC crime dropped 26% in 2025. Homicides down 12%. Trump's justification does not match the stats. So, Trump is saying that crime and homicides and gang violence, this, that, and the third. But once again, this all comes off of this whole big balls situation. Big balls. That's just hilarious. Violent crime rates are at a multi-decade low. Video showing federal agents patrolling a serene national mall. Let's take a look at that. I thought it was a video, but I guess not. Let's see. Other cities are also bad. We're starting with DC. See? It's the 2024 murder rate. So, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, what I'm saying, we know what's being said here when you read between the lines. When we read between the lines, we understand and know what's really going on. It's the Lord, setting up Esau to come down, as we've been saying, This is Isaiah 10, just a few more, I'm about to wrap it up. Isaiah chapter 10, verse 5, it says, O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger, and the staff in their hand is mine indignation. You see, so the staff that's in the Assyrian, who's the modern day Assyrian? Esau. The staff that's in his hand is the anger of the Lord. I will send him against an hypocritical nation. The hypocritical nation is talking about Israel. And against the people of my wrath will I give him a charge to take the spoil and to take the prey and to tread them down like the mire of the streets. You see, so the Lord is ultimately going to be the one setting up these particular military movements in these cities to completely put holy hell on Jake, man. Due to what? Due to their transgressions, due to their iniquity, due to their wickedness. You see, in the men of the Lord, the men of Yahweh Shemal Shah, beginning with the apostles of Great Millstone down to the bishops and elders. All right, and us brothers, we've been warning y'all for time and times, man. Beginning with the apostles, man, decades. And now these things are coming full circle. Now we about to see Proverbs 1 take place. I will laugh at your calamity. I'm gonna mock you when your fear cometh, because you didn't want to take heed. You didn't want to take heed to the men of Yahweh Shemal Shah, the message of Yahweh Shemal Shah through his men. You see? So now the Lord about to bring holy hell on Jake, man. Jeremiah 15, verse 2, it says, and it shall come to pass, if they say unto thee, whither shall we go forth? Where shall we go? Then thou shalt tell them, thus saith Yahweh, such as are for death to death, and such as are for the sword to the sword, and such as are for the famine to the famine, and such as are for the captivity to the captivity. See that? You're going to have individuals getting put to death by the sword, individuals getting put to death by the famine, and you're going to have individuals that are going to be carted off and hauled off to these various different concentration, aka death camps, man, where they're going to be fed with food offered unto idols. They're going to be, get microchipped and things of that nature. It's Jake about to be put in a very, very, very hellish condition, in a very hellish situation. Second Ezra 16 and 68, it says, for behold, the burning wrath of a great multitude is kindled over you, and they shall take away certain of you, and feed you, being idle, with things offered unto idols, which ultimately that main thing is going to be the chip. And they that consent unto them shall be had in derision and in reproach. Those that consent to Esau's policies and his bowing down to the, bowing down their neck to the image of this beast, the image of the beast, taking the MOTB. And they that consent unto them shall be had in derision and in reproach, and trodden under foot. For there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord. So this is really, at the nitty gritty of it, it's really aimed at, stopping the men of the Lord from delivering the gospel. Remember, the scripture says that they have consulted against thine hidden ones. The hidden ones are, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai's men. And this is the time that we're coming into now. And it's just going to get worse. Remember, we're in the beginning of sorrows now. It's just going to get worse. So I pray this lesson was edifying to the elect. Once again, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Chakodash. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders, a great millstone that taught us his truth and that's for teaching his truth. And much peace, love, and salutation to the elect. Until next time, I say shalom.